Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. On this week's episode, we're going to be breaking down the results from the Sacramento Regional Championships, where both Azul and I were in attendance for the very first time this entire season. We were both in the same place at the same time. We will, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. And then we're going to wrap up this week by talking about the upcoming Stuttgart Regional Championships this weekend over in Germany. Definitely plenty to talk about here with what happened in Sacramento and then also how that will affect Stuttgart this coming weekend. And then, of course, we're going to have our weekly exclusive bonus episode exclusive to our YouTube members and our Spotify subscribers. My name is Chip Ritchie, and I'm joined here as always by my friend and co-host, Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing, buddy? How was Sacramento for you?
Doing pretty good, Chip. Yeah, Sacramento was fun. It was good to be playing in a major again. Got to play the Drago, which was also pretty fun as well. Was playing the Reggie Drago. So yeah, had a good weekend playing in the Sacramento Regional Championships. Didn't have like a great run overall. I got top 128, I think, in the end. Got my booster box, which was kind of cool, I guess. So it was cool to get the booster box, and then that was it. But yeah, it was good to be back. I guess playing in a major tournament. I'll only be going to another one this year, but I'll plan to do San Antonio. Is the first one I'll probably be at next year? Is that one in January? I don't even remember. I think it's January. Um,
I think so.
yeah, yeah. So I had a good week overall playing in Sacramento. Um, what about you, Chip? How was your playing experience?
Yeah, it was cool to get to play another regionals. I did not do super well, which I was kind of bummed about. I went 1-3 drop, which I'm pretty sure is my worst regionals performance ever. I've dropped in day ones before, but I think I've always gotten a little bit deeper than that. So that was definitely a bit of a bummer. Um, I had some kind of funky things happen in my first 3 rounds, got a loss, a win, a loss, and then, in my 4th round, where I inevitably dropped from, it was a 3-game set, and in both of the games I lost, I made 2 pretty egregious mistakes, including in game 3, literally a play that just gave my opponent had no win condition, and I gave them a win condition, and then they won the game. So that was pretty brutal. Definitely kind of bummed at myself about that. But, it is what it is. I'll try to play another tournament at some point, maybe this season, depending on what the schedule looks like when we get our schedule for the upcoming regionals through the 2020 through the end of the season and stuff. But yeah, the tournaments I get to play are few and far between. So I was kind of thinking about this a little bit and talking to someone about it at the tournament who asked me about it. And it's like, I used to compete at these tournaments before I casted. And then before Pokemon like casted the regionals, I would, cast a few of them with Critical Hit that used to put on the tournaments. Um, and so it's like I was playing mostly, but then sometimes casting, which was pretty easy to do. But then going from mostly casting to sometimes playing is definitely a bit harder of a hop back and forth for me because I'm just not, the way you test and prepare compared to when you're casting versus playing is just different. And then I tried to play a bunch of games the week before the tournament. Ended up not playing the deck that I played a bunch of games with, of course. Played Reggie Drago, the same list that you and Caleb ended up playing, which I think was a good list, and I was fine with it. But yeah, it just didn't go my way. I don't know. It was
Yeah,
a
it's
rough
hard, Chip.
one.
We'll get them next time. We'll get them next time. We'll link back up again.
Okay,
We'll take over the next major tournament. We'll bring Archalet on this time instead,
let's get it.
which
Yeah,
is
that's the
a
deck I tested last week mostly, and I played it. I did play in a couple side events, and I played that deck, and it was fun. I had a good time. I tried to make the most of the weekend after I dropped, so played a couple sides, which was fun. Met a few people. But yeah, definitely not as successful as a weekend as other people in the testing group and stuff as well. It was a pretty good showing from our like friend group testing group. Isaiah got top 8. He hasn't been playing quite as much. I guess he did go to Baltimore this year, but
yeah.
um, he didn't really play much last season, but he's a very good player that a lot of people just don't even recognize or know. It was actually kind of funny. I was watching one of Grant's games in day 2 where he was playing against Isaiah, and someone was like asking about like who Grant's opponent was, and I was like, he's an international champion, and they were like, really? What? No, like it was totally shocked. So people just don't know. He hadn't been around.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, was one of the best players in the game when he was, like, playing regularly, and now he just, shows up to a couple things each season. Played in a couple events last season. I think the first couple seasons after COVID, he didn't go to anything, but,
Yeah, I don't
last
think so.
season, this season, he's already been to a couple events, and he'll probably come to a couple more. And, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a couple more strong showings. I talked to him about like whether or not he's gonna go for his world's invite, and he's like, maybe. I was like, if you just get to like, 6 to 7 majors, you could get it through that as long as you have a strong enough
Well, it sounded like he was
amount
gonna
of
go to locals
performances.
and stuff too, which I think if he does that, like, he'll be chilling for sure.
Yeah, definitely has a shot. He just has to we just have to be there to force him to put Cleffa in his deck. And then he
Yeah.
should be good to go. Um, because he was initially pretty adamant about Cleffa being bad in Reggie Drago, but a couple rounds into day one, he realized that's one of the best cards in the deck, and you kind of have to play it. So,
Yeah.
well, we might have to help him a little bit along the ways, but yeah, I think he can definitely end up in the top 125 if he goes to enough majors for sure.
But yeah, thanks to everyone who came up and said hello this weekend. Whenever I play versus cast, I always talk to way more people because like I'm just out in the crowd more. So it's cool to hear a lot of people who are really enjoying both the podcast and then also the second channel. I get a lot of people talking about the second channel stuff in the evolution series, which is fun. Also, a little update real quick based on something we talked about last week, the Spotify thing. It sounds like from the comments from most people that there is absolutely no difference between uploading a video version of a podcast and an audio only version of a podcast to Spotify. So from here on out, the plan is to just upload the video version over on Spotify, both the bonus episode and the main episode. So hello to anyone watching on Spotify that can actually see us for the first time. Maybe I bet there's someone out there who has only ever listened on Spotify and literally has no concept of what either of us look like.
I find that hard to believe. I feel like that's for
Maybe I don't know, bro.
I feel like for the I don't know, I
I
guess
guess
like
maybe
the
we're a little too
environment we're in.
niche. A little too
Yeah,
niche of
yeah.
an environment, sure.
Yeah, like you wouldn't be listening to us on here regularly. Now, maybe like someone's listening to this right now and they just like stumbled across it on Spotify. I guess we have the videos up now though. So like on a previous episode, but if you're a regular listener, you've probably seen us before, heard of us before, or, like went and seeked us out afterwards. I would assume to
Maybe
some
so.
extent. Yeah. But I guess it is possible. Anything's possible. There's one more thing I was going to mention as well before we moved on, but I literally just forgot what it was. So I guess we can jump into Sacramento as the first thing to talk about, the first major tournament in the Surging Sparks format.
Yeah, let's do it. If you think of what you were gonna say, feel free to chime in. But yeah, we had Sacramento regionals this weekend. Over 1,700 players. First tournament of the Surging Sparks format, like you mentioned. Let's start off by looking at the day one and day two meta breakdown because I was super unsure going in exactly what this was going to look like. But I don't think it's too big of a surprise, just a week removed from LAIC, that Reggie Drago V Star does become the most popular deck. Um, in a new format, something like that, that it has been such a powerhouse and just has so many options, typically tends to fare well. And so I don't think it's too big of a surprise that it was the number one most played deck and then translated very well to still be the most played deck in day number two.
Yeah, so was the big deck, and then after that, the Raging Bolt and the Charizard. I don't think either of those are a surprise either. As deck number two, number three, and then it really shifted too much going to day two. I feel like Reggie Drago had a pretty good, 4% increase is quite a bit for the most popular deck. I feel like,
Sure.
you know, Raging Ball came up 1.5%. Charizard came up about 1%, and then it kind of like I guess it evens out from there. Guardy was in the top six, maintained in the top six, gained a little ground. Lost Box was there as well, kind of remained neutral. And then Lugia was there in the day one, and then disappears going into day two, which I'm not super surprised by. Especially because Lost Box is there on the graph, and the Lost Box matchup has become so terrible for Lugia. Before it was like kind of fine, but now it's become pretty bad with the addition of that Pikachu EX and actually Golden Go, which I think is a little bit of a surprise to see it pop up. Although I haven't seen like a best of the rest breakdown graphic. I don't know if they showed it on stream, so that'd been
Yeah, they
interesting to
maybe
see.
didn't.
Would have been interesting to see where Golden Go came from, like where it was in day one, because we know it popped up in day two, and that's decently popular for Golden Go, decently successful as well overall in the tournament. Um, and one thing I actually would mention about this meta share here is actually like when you look at that, like day two meta share, that doesn't look like a bad meta for Lugia to go up against besides the Lost Zone deck, right? Like playing Lugia into this meta seems that's pretty good actually, to be honest. Um, so it makes me think. I mean, with knowing what won Sacramento, and that deck is probably going to get quite a bit more popular. Lugia will probably still struggle moving forward, but I guess I'm like maybe a little bit surprised that maybe that like a Lugia or two didn't go a little bit deeper in Sacramento because it seems like they're pretty absent from the top tables.
Yeah, and you do mention the deck that won, which did end up being Miraidon. Um, and I think that's a pretty surprising omission, especially from the day one graphic, because I think a lot of people knew that that deck was pretty good going into this new format. It got a pretty big buff with the Latiasi X, and then mainly the Magneton really like allows for so many different things for that deck. Um,
Yeah, that's almost like the biggest boost to the deck for sure is
yeah.
the Magneton.
Yeah, Pikachu
Um,
is honestly almost, like, irrelevant. Like, if Pikachu
yeah.
versus Pikachu could literally be Mewtwo EX, and it would probably be fine, but Pikachu is just strictly better, so obviously you play the Pikachu, but it's like, that's all it's really for.
Yeah, it's not like a huge buff when the other two, like especially Latias getting involved. Like if you had to
Yeah,
play Mewtwo over Pikachu, you wouldn't really be complaining, even though it has 2 retreat cost. And then obviously the Magneton is the biggest boost to the deck, I think by far, like not even close. So yeah, definitely a deck that got a really big buff. It's definitely a deck that I definitely felt like it not overperformed. When testing the deck with Surging Sparks' release, I feel like it was better than I thought it was going to be. Like after playing with the deck initially on release, I was like, oh wait, this is just like the deck just got a ton better. Like it's just got so many more options. Raichu's back in the mix, stuff like that. But it didn't seem, yeah, it doesn't seem like the community at large kind of gravitated towards it very much at all. That's what another reason it would be nice to see the best of the rest, right? Because it could just be right there at 5% behind Guardy,
right.
right? So it'd be cool. It'd be nice to know like how underplayed was it for how well it did, because the finals was 2 Miraidon decks. And this feels very similar. I mentioned to you before we started casting. This feels very similar to last year's LAIC when Yuho won with Miraidon, right? Basically, everyone thought Miraidon was basically dead as a deck, um, and not really a deck to look out for. And then wins LAIC, and then it was the most popular deck at the next weekend at the major tournament in Europe. I forget which one it was. It might have been Stuttgart, actually. I don't even remember. Um, and we could see like the the exact same thing happening here overall. I don't think anyone thought Miraidon was dead with Surging Sparks. I think everyone kind of recognized that the deck got better. But I think probably from these results, probably wasn't recognized how good the deck probably got overall. Because that feels like it definitely not just that both the decks in the finals were Miraidon, but its play rate wasn't that high from what we can tell. Right, it was at least under 5% day one.
Yeah.
So, or about 5% or under. So it was like that's still like a big success to have two in the top eight from that play percentage.
Yeah. And we don't have all the lists updated to Limitless just yet, so when we look at some of these deck lists, we're gonna be pulling them directly from Arcanine, which is a little bit less appealing to look at, I will say, compared to how clean Limitless looks, and a little harder to find some stuff. But we just pulled some of the interesting decks from the top 32 that we at least want to talk about. But let's start by talking about the top eight. Like you've mentioned, it is two Miraidon in the finals. We do have a Golden Go getting up in here. Victor de Velasco was the first seed heading into cut with the Golden Go, had not lost a game the entire tournament. And then we have five Regidrago rounding it out with the fourth through eighth spot. And then ninth place, there was 9 players in asymmetric top cut. Ninth place was a Charizard deck.
Yeah, it was a Charizard. I believe it had the unfair stamp, so the trolley Zard was not the most successful build of Charizard. But yeah, I think I think it's fair to say Regidrago dominated this tournament.
Yeah.
Most popular deck day one, decent conversion rate into day two, 5 of them in the top eight. Um, yeah, I think it'd be fair to say that Regidrago kind of dominated this tournament. And it's not like a huge surprise. Yeah, when it is the most popular deck, and then it was like was something that I've been talking about a lot recently, and I think kind of is reflected in this top cut. Like the best players in the game are all just playing Regidrago. Like the in like the an overwhelming percentage wise, right? There's good players playing every deck, but yeah, like and you see some of the names in of the Drago players in the top eight here, which is definitely gonna be an interesting thing we'll talk about more going into Stuttgart and like how does Regidrago kind of fit moving forward.
Mhm.
But obviously pretty good play for this tournament. But didn't come out on top. And then the two Miraidon lists, which I guess we can jump into right now, is they were pretty different. Landon's and Kenneth's. They're both Area Zero builds, but the core supporter in them is quite a bit different. Landon's build is basically what we've come to expect from Miraidon last format, and then going into this format, it's the 4 Arvin build. with the only other supporter being in the deck being Boss's Orders, right? And then you get to play the cool new, or you get to have the cool new addition of the counter catcher. Now that you have Magneton in the deck, which is super super sick because you can.
Yep.
It's kind of a two for two trade off in basically every single matchup. So you can pop your Magneton at some point, putting yourself on odd prize cards, being down a prize card, but not losing the prize trade, and all of a sudden all of your Arvins turn to gust effects as well, which is pretty sick.
Yeah, I got bodied by this in round 1 of the tournament. A guy who told me he literally was playing your list that you posted on YouTube. Uh, I went first as Reggie Drago, and he went turn 1 boss, turn 2 boss, turn 3 Magneton counter catcher, and it was just GG's. Couldn't do a thing. It was so sick. And then in game 2, I prized both fire energies, so we went to the next one after that.
Yeah, it's a pretty sick combo, the Magneton counter catcher thing. Um, Man, yeah, like yeah, Miraidon just got so much better. There's so many of these little things, and it is like interesting. Like looking back, Miraidon's a deck that I wanted to have put more time into before Sacramento. Just didn't really have any time. There's so much stuff to play with. But I think there's a couple other ways you can still build the deck as well, which is uh cool. Like Sajin's list that he recently has been having success with in online tournaments with like the sparkling crystal and stuff is like really really cool. So there's like a lot of depth to the deck right now because we can see from the second place list completely different core support. There's still an Arvin in here, but there's also 3 Irida, which is a little wild. We haven't
Yeah.
seen that ever.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you call it completely different, but it's almost the same, right?
Yeah, except for except for the draw supporter, I guess, or the core. It's not a draw supporter. Would you supporter engine supporter?
Yeah, but it's like Arvin and Irida are kind of doing 2 similar things, right? But
This
this
is true.
list, with the Irida, you are playing it has the Radiant Greninja in here, which is something Landon did not play. Yeah, this is honestly pretty cool. He also has the Blood Moon Ursaluna, another card Landon did not play in the winning list, so it's another just like low cost way to try to close out a game. With Magneton, you can actually just use Blood Moon for free at the end of the game too, almost guaranteed, which is pretty neat. Um, One thing
Yeah,
like putting the Radiant Greninja in play does potentially make Magneton a little harder to use, right? Your opponent can do stuff to like play around that, right?
yeah, yeah. I say completely different, but I guess yeah. The only thing different is like the main supporter in the deck. The Irida
Yeah.
is really interesting. Another really cool part about this list is the Rotom because there's a lot more matchups where you're a lot more comfortable going first as Miraidon, and we saw the Rotom from oh man, who was it at Worlds? Ryan Harris, I think, played the Rotom at the World Championships for basically the same reason. I think he said, yeah, pretty comfortable going first in a decent amount of matchups. And that's why I ran the Rotom because you just get that +3 draw to build on your hand for like big combo turns. I think it's even more relevant with all the tools that Miraidon now has, like specifically um the Magneton is like the big one. You can build up for these bigger combo turn twos, especially with like through bosses orders. It makes it easier to like go turn two bosses orders instead of like turn two. I was gonna say Arvin, but Irida more so in this case. So and yeah, the Irida does have some good targets, like you mentioned, the Radiant Greninja, Iron Bundle, of course. Love Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle super powerful in the Miraidon deck. So you have some good targets for the Irida. Um, it does just feel like, not that you're getting -1 card, because like, the tool cards are just, like, less important in Miraidon, I feel like, in general, now that you have Secret Box in the deck. So the Irida definitely, like, I can see where it, like, might be the better of the 2 choices here. And we see in this build still from Kenneth, like, there is still a Arvin in here. Um, but the majority of your draw supporters are the Iridas.
So a deck that goes from totally absent from the meta share into winning the whole event. Yeah, I'm not. We'll talk about this a little bit more as we close things out here, but I'm not going to be surprised at all to see through the remainder of this format this be like a strong, be in a strong spot through the entirety of the meta game.
I feel like it'll be pretty similar to Raging Bolt moving forward, where it won't feel on the same level as probably a Reggie Drago, but it's like a deck you're not going to want to lose to, right? No one
Yeah.
really wants to go into a tournament losing really hard to Raging Bolt. Although Drago's supposed to have an unfavored Raging Bolt matchup, and Raging Bolt's been pretty popular the last couple events. And I don't know where the Bolts are, but I know where the Dragos are. So, but Miraidon I think is a little bit different. I think you're not going to want to take an L to Miraidon, and it's going to be a little bit harder to overcome. It's going to be a little bit harder to have like a skill diff over Miraidon the way like it feels like Drago currently has for like the caliber of players that choose to play one deck over the other.
And let's move on and take a look at Golden Go from Victor de Velasco. Yeah, I mean, I think this beside when you talk about decks that were old decks that got a big buff from Surging Sparks that are not like entirely new archetypes, it definitely seems like number one is Miraidon with the tools we talked about, and then number two is Golden Go with just the simple addition of Energy Search Pro.
There's no hand disruption cards in this deck. It is I'm winning the prize trade with Togekiss dot deck.
Yeah.
Dude, that is kind of sick. It is kind of sick. The Togekiss, it definitely feels like I played a couple decks of Togekiss now. Golden Go feels like the deck that has it feels like it's the best deck with Togekiss that I played with so far. But I always kind of just still thought of it as kind of like a meme deck. I was like, I don't know, this is cool, it's fun, but you're flipping a coin on this Wonder Kiss and you're putting a ton of resources towards that. It can't be good, right? But we see it here, third place. Super sick to see the Golden Go, not just Golden Go, but Golden Go with the Togekiss in there. And yeah, they're just going all in to win the prize, right? There's no hand disruption supporters in this list at all.
Dude, we got Victor. We you got top four now. You got to go out of your way. I know it's expensive. You got to shell out and get the optimal Togepi.
Yeah. Wait, is this one ever better? There's not, right? The other one is literally the exact same, but it heals 10 damage from reactive,
Yeah.
which is relevant for the Dragapult slash Regidrago matchup. Heals that 10 damage off a Golden Go, because like one of the plays that Regidrago or Dragapult can try and go for is the 260 into 260 to KO two Golden Goes in 2 turns.
Yep.
But this Togepi, he messes
Little
with that.
little touch of happiness, baby.
Yeah, it goes a long way for Golden Go. But yeah, super sick build, honestly, as well. It is an Irida build. And there is no Palkia, which is interesting for sure. But you do still have some strong water Pokemon, the Radiant Greninja, the Iron Bottle, just like Kenneth's Miraidon build. Irida's in here just to get the support mons.
Pretty
Um,
crazy.
yeah. And then the biggest thing is finding that Energy Surge Pro, though, right? That is such a powerful card in the Golden Go deck. Every time I've played with the deck, finding that card turn two, it just I brought this up, I think, when we talked about decks last week or something. Just like the idea of card value in the Pokemon TCG doesn't really exist that much because you just see so many cards every single turn with most decks. But you play Energy Search Pro and it just feels different in the Pokemon TCG. Like it just feels like, okay, this is card value. I just got 8 cards out of my deck for playing one card.
Yep.
So trying to
Eh,
find that always as soon as possible is a big deal.
You don't even always get all 8, but even if you're getting
Yeah.
5 of them,
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
so insanely good. Um, and it enables, like, more aggressive plays as well. You can set up things with counter catcher, right? You can go for a one prize board at the beginning of the game, let your opponent take a prize, guarantee you'll be able to use the counter catcher, right? The Thornton in here is cool. So if your opponent tries to deny the Togepi, you can bring it back. Yeah, really, really cool list. The deck, I mean, I don't know, man. This is another one that it popped. It was the sixth most popular deck in day two. Had a
Yeah. I had
lot
a
of
really
good
good conversion,
conversions,
probably.
and I think a lot of people. I don't think everyone was playing Togekiss that was in day two, but I know a few people who were playing Golden Go that did also play Togekiss. So
One of the rounds I sat down and on my left, I was I think 401 at the time. On my left, Togekiss Golden Go. On my right, Togekiss Golden Go. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're out here, bro. They're up here."
let's
And I
get it.
actually lost to a the round after that one. I did lose to a Golden Go, the Palkia build, so like the more traditional build or whatever, but I ended up losing to one of those later on in the tournament. But yeah, the Golden Goes were out for sure.
And
And Togekiss, yeah, was there.
that's one of the things too. I mean, it does not have a bad Regidrago matchup at all. It I would say has a
Yeah.
pretty good one, to be honest. Victor on his way. Let's see if we can pull up. I'll see if I can pull up the Poke data. I mean, he beat Isaiah in top 8 to get to top
Mhm.
4. He beat Andrew Hedrick on the winning in as well to get to first seed in the tournament. Who obviously Andrew Hedrick is one of the best players in the game right now. Yeah, I don't know. It can't be that bad of a matchup.
Yeah, it's at least I mean, it's probably no worse than 50-50, but I think it does have the edge overall. I think I give Golden Go the edge. A little bit, maybe a big part of it. Well, one of the big parts of that I think is Prime Catcher because you can more aggressively get that first two prize knockout. Hiding behind Cleffa is a little bit harder. With a deck like Golden Go, how many cards they can see in a single turn, but the Togekiss kind of makes up for that. And like Regidrago, even if you take a one prize knockout to begin with on a Cleffa, if you set up Togekiss, there's a good chance you get like one of 3 heads.
Yeah. I mean, he's also
And
got the
you
Iron Bundle in here as well. So if they've just got
Yeah, that's
Cleffa,
true.
easy push, right?
I think Iron Bundle stocks are gonna go way up going into
A-
Stuttgart.
Another,
Dragos are getting away with pushing Cleffa. Like it's like they're getting away with murder out here with this Cleffa push. Like it's just actually
yeah.
after playing the deck in the tournament, it's criminal, bro. You just push Cleffa and your opponent can't do anything for the turn.
Dude,
The
I
bundle stock's
wanted to
going
play
up.
a bundle in our deck, bro. I wanted to play the
Would have been pretty good
bundle.
in mirror. It would have
Yeah.
been pretty good.
Yeah, bundle stonks way, way up. And then after that, I mean, it gets a little boring with
Yeah.
the Reggie Dragos. Now, Brent Tonneson did just rock his same 60 cards that he just got second place with at LAIC the weekend before. Still proves to be pretty good. As you can see, this list has had tons of results. Feels like there's one deck like this every single format that just becomes the deck to play.
I think this might be the last entry though. I feel like things are probably gonna switch a moon for. We'll see though.
Yeah,
Maybe
because
Brent's just gonna rock this good card.
there are a couple of new cards that most of these other lists, I haven't looked at Noah's yet, but I would imagine yeah, it doesn't look like Noah had the
No.
Executor in here, but all these other lists, Grant Shin, John Ang, and Isaiah Williams. Grant, we don't have Isaiah's list listed here, but he did play the same 60 as Grant Shin. And then Grant and John played almost the same 60, the only difference being John played two superior, one super odd. Grant and Isaiah played two super odd, one superior. They've got a couple solid new cards in here that I think players should start to consider. The one Terra Orb, the one Alolan Executor EX, and then also the stadium of choice, one Pokestop.
Yeah. And we played the Executor as well. We didn't play the Terra Orb. I didn't use the Executor a single time. I played against two wall decks too, but they got their mists out really fast, or I prized it, so I couldn't use it. The Executor seems okay. It might be a little bit better moving forward if you expect Miraidon to be more popular. Raging Ball is still going to be around, and those are the matchups it's good against.
Yeah.
Is like the Raging Ball matchup.
It,
Miraidon, it's like less relevant because you're trying to go like Drago's Radzard anyways, or you have the ability to do that, so it's like not super relevant against Miraidon, to be honest. It really is just the Raging Bolt matchup, and every other matchup is kind of whatever. If stall and like wall decks become really popular, then there is value to playing it for those reasons as well.
yeah, it honestly it can be okay in the mirror as well, because if you are the one who is behind and your opponent is like got Cleffa active, you didn't get Gust. You
They're
think
threatening the gust, yeah.
you're gonna probably lose the prize trade. Give yourself a 50-50 to just win the game and be the one ahead in the prize trade. There you go, baby.
Yeah, my opponent, in one of my Drago mirrors, my opponent went for that. They got the KO on my Cleffa, so they got heads,
That
but
play
they
would be
didn't.
actually way better if Bundle was in the deck.
Yeah, they actually caught me with it. I think they it was successful for them in game 1 or 2, and then it was unsuccessful in the game after that. I'm pretty sure they got me with it one of the games. They got me with it one of the games, I'm pretty sure, but, yeah, I mean, I mean,
It's an
yeah, I
okay
mean, a
card.
50-50, yeah, 50-50 in the moment isn't really bad for some of those situations, though, in the mirror match, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um
Jishin said I think Jishin used this card a lot, and he was calling it the Executioner all weekend. Um, and he said again he played against an Iron Thorns, and he used Tropical Frenzy to just put 5 energy on his benched Reggie Drago V.
Loaded
Just
up,
get them
ready to go.
loaded up. So I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool card, and like having the Terra Orb is honestly I think a cooler inclusion here because it finds you a lot. It gets you Teal Mask Ogrepon, it gets you a Dragapult, and then if you're playing the Executor, it's just that one more thing it can get you.
Yeah, I like that for sure. You mentioned that, was it Hedrick was still running or was running a capture remote, which I have seen before
Yeah,
in some other builds, and, like, I'm sure Hedrick was aware of Terra Orb as well, but still thinks that the Capture Aroma is better, which is interesting. I kinda like the assuredness of just, like, having another out to one of those, like, super powerful cards, the Dragapult and the Ogerpon specifically. The Executor, I would not say is a super powerful card. EBI. But yeah, the Captain Aroma might be the better of those two options, to be honest, just being, like, another search card. I definitely felt very comfortable only having one Dragapult in the deck, to be honest, with the Goodra in there. If Goodra wasn't there, I don't think I would feel that comfortable about not having
sure.
second Dragapult, but with Goodra involved, only having one Dragapult felt more than fine.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that as well. And then yeah, so that was Grant, John, and Isaiah's list, and then we can look at Noah's list real quick. Um,
Lucha
does
making a
have the
comeback.
Halucha, has the double Dragapult here. Other than that, both of the stadiums kind of similar to what we've been seeing.
I would definitely play. Oh, there's no Goodra. No Goodra in here. Interesting. Okay, went with the no Goodra. I was gonna say I would definitely. I feels like you should definitely be playing the Terra Orb, the Aroma before the second Dragon Ball, but without Goodra, I think that does make sense. Now, I don't know if I like no Goodra, but definitely makes sense to run the Dragapult, second Dragapult
Yeah.
if you're not gonna run Goodra.
And then, like we said, not all the lists are uploaded to Limitless just yet. I think Arcanine didn't quite get them out before today, but they did post them today, so we can pull them directly from Arcanine, which is a little bit more cumbersome, but we can still find some of the lists. So we just went through and looked at some of the interesting decks from top 32. This is Yi Hao Chen's 10th place Ancient Box deck. It's got a Roaring Moon EX in there, has the Brute Bonnet for like some. It's kind of interesting, right? Because Brute Bonnet with an Ancient Booster Capsule on it is plus 10 damage every turn, plus 10 more coming back into your turn. But it's like if you just discarded those cards, it would be plus 20 consistently. Is there like a matchup where it's like good to have that in play and just keep poisoning over and over again? I wonder.
Um,
He can't
man,
get
I don't know.
stuck, which is nice because of Petrarunt.
I have to oh, there's a mochi in there. I don't know if you saw the mochi.
Oh, I did not see the mochi. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a
Okay.
mochi. I have to imagine one of the reasons is they have to be playing towards playing around flip the script. Like having Pokemon die
Mm,
by poison. I have to imagine that's one of the reasons to include it. That's the only like one of the only reasons I can think of to include it is like to play around your opponent's flip the script, take that away from them by the Pokemon getting KO'd in Pokemon checkup or in between turns, not
wow.
during your
Look at
turn.
you using the proper terms. Pokemon checkup. Is Azul out here auditioning to be a caster right now? What
See,
is
the problem is like everyone be like, "What the heck is Pokemon checkup?" No one knows.
we just have to
Yeah,
get it
in between
into
turns.
the like, people just we got to get people up with the times.
I see. I feel like that's like a honestly, I think that's actually this is like a negative thing for the game because no other game Under Between Turns is kind of a little bit more unanimous across like other card games. It's like when
Sure.
someone says in between turns, I think everyone understands what that is. If someone says Pokemon checkup, they're like, "Oh, what is that phase?" And they obviously will tell them it's just in between turns. But when people like tune into the stream and stuff, and someone says Pokemon checkup instead of in between turns, they'll be like, "What is that?" But in between turns is self-explanatory, right? So I think it's almost like a negative thing to like start utilizing the term
Yeah, but
or
it's more brand appropriate.
it is more brand appropriate, but making it so people understand what the heck is going on. Is there 3 s am I no, I just can't see the numbers. I thought it said 3 SADA. I was like, "Alright,
No, 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 no.
they're just tripping." They cut a SADA for a Brute Bonnet. Something's wrong here.
They did cut a Fluttermane for a Brute Bonnet though. There's
Yeah,
only 3 Fluttermane in the list, which I guess is fine.
they have 2 Great Tusk as well. They're trying to make room for the other alternate attackers. Fluttermane not as good anymore. Well, no, actually, no. Fluttermane is kind of making like a comeback in terms of relevancy because there's a lot of Lost Box, right? Lost Box is definitely an uptick, which is one of the matchups that you want it for to open up against and slow them down, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, Ancient Box, I'm not sold on it still. I don't fully know how much value you're gonna get out of this Brute Bonnet though, as well. Like, I don't know where it comes into play. But yeah, did pull off a top 16 here. Some cool additions that we haven't seen before. Oh, I guess the Mochi also combos with that secret box as well, right? You got that as like a little combo. Yeah. See what
Then
Ancient Box's future holds.
and then talk about a blast from the past here. We've got a top 16 finish, 14th place from Andy Zhang with Chien Pao. That's a name I've not heard in quite a long time.
It definitely been a while, and got some interesting cards in there that we don't always see. The Luminian, the 1/1 Palkia. Although I want to say that Lucas played the 1/1 Palkia at the World Championships. Most recently is when I can remember seeing it, but it was played a lot in Japan as well, like throughout Jin Pao's good moments. And this list as well very heavily playing towards the Greninja combo, right? 2 canceling cologne in there. And if as long as I'm seeing that number correctly, dude, these numbers are so small. It's
It
2,
is
right?
2 canceling
Okay,
cologne.
2 canceling cologne and a Palpat to recover the boss as well. So playing really aggressively towards that Moonlight Shuriken combo, but also got to deal with that Pikachu as well, right? So the canceling clones are good for that.
Yep. Nothing else really. No new cards else in there. We do have a 15th place list. This is from Nicholas Cuccinelli, who was playing Roaring Moon. And this was a pretty popular deck. There's a couple more of these in the top 32. So this, made its way into the format a bit here. Did get a new card with the addition of the Koraidon. It's also something Ancient Box could technically play. We didn't see it in that 10th place list. It's Unrelenting Onslaught for 2 colorless. If one of your other ancient Pokemon used an attack during your last turn, this attack does 150 more damage. It is a fighting type as well, which is not a bad typing to have in the game, of course. And then the A-Spec of choice here is really interesting. It's an unfair stamp.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the unfair stamp. We've seen it before though. We've seen some aggressive builds like aggressive decks like Raging Bolt. I've seen it in here before as well. The unfair stamp. It's just basically like Oh, this list doesn't. I was gonna say we have 4 catcher. Is it only 3 catcher? No, we have 4 catcher. We have
It's
Iron
more
Bundle. There's
catcher,
actually
yeah.
there's actually no Iron Bundle in this build, which I'm surprised to see, with the lack of Prime catcher. But still have 4 catcher. We still have a boss. We have a lot of aggressive gust. But we're coming up short against some of these more setup decks, like a Charizard or something. They can have the ability of these huge hands with like Pheasantipity and whatnot. But if you can unfair stamp them turn 2 and then just KO the one, like they set up an attacker, they knock you out in response. It's looking good for them, and then you go unfair stamp them to 2 plus like one hit KO. They're active with Frenzy Gouging. They might just not be able to recover from something like that. So the unfair stamp is a very interesting inclusion in these aggressive decks, right? Because you're not trying to make like that early disruptive, or it feels like you usually aren't trying to make that early disruptive comeback because you're not the setup deck, but it is very good against the setup decks, which is a little bit of an interesting thing there. Like, because against Charizard, they're going to try and unfair stamp you as well if they play it. And then it has like I guess the other cards I call it here, but like the Temple of Sinnoh as well was teching for the Lugia matchup.
Has the Latias
Um,
as a new card inclusion.
yeah, I'm kind of sad to not see the Baby Pecharon. I played with some Turbo Moon before Sack a bit, and the Baby Pecharon was so good because you can KO stuff like Charmanders and Dreepies and not trigger the what is it called? Flip the script because they die by poison. You attack with the Baby Pecharon. It does 10 and then we'll do 60 poison into their turn. So I'm kind of sad to not see that there, but yeah, Latias was a pretty big addition for the deck because it means you can push your moons to the active without poisoning them, which takes away the stronger possibility of the double Kyurem play against Drago. So Latias is a
Yeah.
big buff to this deck, to be honest, for the Drago matchup
Yeah. And you
specifically.
you do still want to play the Petron because it is such a strong attacker at the end of the game, so it still,
Yeah.
like, has that option. Of course, if you prize Latias as well, it's something you can do to, use the Petron to get your guy active. Um,
Auto wins the stall matchup as well, so you just pick up an
yeah.
auto win by playing the Petron, which is something you want. I actually saw it's funny I mentioned that I in round like 3 or 4, I sat next to Stall versus Moon, and the Stall player just packed it up and was like, "Let's go get lunch or something." Like they were just like done.
Broken awareness right there.
Yeah, like this is not worth the time investment. Better
Is
to
that what you would
conserve
do
my
as well?
mental. I think I would make them bench the Petron at least.
Each
Um,
game, yeah.
Yeah, because you couldn't beat them with flutes. Like I almost cheesed a Pecha Run Ancient Box at Worlds. I fluted 4 Pokemon into play, and then they top decked Pecha Run with a dead hand on the next turn. And I had the
Ah!
Arvin to get the next flute. I was like, I should get one more flute off, and they don't have Pecha Run this turn. But then they probably would have beat me in game 3 anyway, so it's like not a huge deal.
I
But yeah,
think
I play
that
for the
seems
cheese.
reasonable, yeah. Make them bench it, that makes yeah, I actually had a situation kinda like that at a regionals forever ago where I played Zoroark counters deck that had all special energy, and I hit a stall deck that had Xurkitree, and so uh game 1, I, like, played to like him prizing it or whatever, or just like, continue to play my game. He eventually gets it into play, and then he keeps playing. I keep playing the game from there. He keeps playing the game. He keeps benching like 1 or 2 more things to just kind of play around it, just in case I have something. He does eventually win, and so then in game 2, he immediately nest balls for it, and I just pick it up from there. It was like, yep, can't do anything at this point.
You gotta know. Yeah, make them have it. Make them have it. Because there's like if there's a win condition, double flute, maybe they prize it, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Play to your ass to some extent, but no shame in conceding after they've, got their combo set up.
And then perhaps the most interesting deck that we noticed in the top 32, and it's actually 2 players, and we're pretty sure it's the same 60 from just a quick glance. Shout outs to Richard, and Patrick Ratty, who got top 32 each with Cloth and Terapagos in the same deck. Cloth Terapagos. What the heck were they cooking here?
Okay, yeah, when we is it 4 areas here? There is 4, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that Cloth, actually, now I'm thinking about this a little bit more. One of the things that Cloth has there's a trolley in here as well. Okay, this is getting more and more interesting. One of the things that Cloth has trouble with is kind of bench space. Its bench space is like high value. You Squawk early sometimes, Luminion, and then you need Brute, you need Cloth, you sometimes need Radiant Sneasler. It
Got
gets
this baby
clogged up pretty
Petrunk in
fast.
here.
Yeah, but if you play the Terapagos plus Area Zero, you do effectively get like +2 bench spaces to work with, which can be a pretty big deal. And at that point, you're just committed to putting a bunch of liabilities in play, but you have a lot more stuff to work with, like Guru V to find your Forest Sealstone, of course, stuff like that. And it can find your other tools throughout the game as well. So that's kind of sick. Looking at this build fully now, it is kind of sick to be honest. It definitely is. It definitely is pretty sick, dude. It feels like LAIC. We had the Charizard Terapagos deck. Now We see the cloth Terrapagos deck. What will we see at Stuttgart? What is the next Terrapagos deck to see?
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, really sick build. I mean, yeah, and I think we're assuming here definitely that they are, testing group together or work together.
It would be pretty wild for 2 people to totally independently come up with a very similar build of this deck and both get top 32 at the same tournament.
Is that two heavy ball?
It is 2 heavy ball, yep.
That's sick. You love to see two heavy ball.
There's so many important one-of Pokemon in this deck.
Yeah,
The Oranguru V, gotta give a call out to the Oranguru V here, which is actually kinda sick with the Latias EX in here as well. The
yeah.
free retreat, the Latias also lets you, at LAIC, we saw some people playing this Baby Petrunt in their Cloth deck, trying to donk some low HP Pokemon on the first turn of the game when they're going first. Now you don't have to worry about trying to find Jet Energy super early. You can just Latias EX
Yep.
into the Petrunt, which is pretty sick.
I feel like that's a big one for sure. To be honest, is like I feel like normal clothless don't have bench space for Latias. I feel like if you take the clothless that have been doing well, post surging sparks, they just don't have room for Latias. Latias would be a huge card to be able to play and put on your bench aggressively. And by playing Area Zero and the Terrapagos, you get that extra bench space to work with. And even if your Area Zero gets bumped, you just discard your Squawkabillies and your Luminions and all that other stuff you don't need anymore, right? So, yeah, super super sick build here with the cloth Terrapagos. I didn't think too much of it when you mentioned it earlier, but now like looking at it and kind of like seeing how everything kind of synergizes together, yeah, it's a pretty sick build.
And there's actually some good math here as well with Terrapagos plus Mochi plus Radiant Sneasler, where you can KO a Regidrago V and not activate Pheasantipity.
Wait, V Star or V?
V Star. Or yeah, V Star.
Yeah, V Star, yeah, and that's actually huge because that's like one of Cloth's worst matchups. I would say for sure. It's one of its harder matchups. You have like the late game Ursa Luna Mochi combo, but they can usually just play around it. They just like do go for big multi-prize turns as Reggie Drago, but being able to aggressively KO their first Drago or having that potential is actually huge for that matchup. Yeah, this deck gets even more sick. The more you think about it and look at it and all the stuff that's going on in here, you get to play Briar as well. We see the Briar in there. Um, yeah, this is definitely a deck I'm excited to actually try out, to be honest, this week on stream.
And Cloth, of course, just destroys Miraidon, right? Like this should probably have a pretty good Miraidon matchup.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, anything makes a huge difference for that matchup moving forward. I'd imagine you still have to be pretty favored as Cloth. It'd be hard for them to trade 2/2/2 into you. You should have the edge for sure.
It's definitely like I could see it being like a coin flip matchup where it's like you gotta win the flip and go second.
Yeah. The thing is, like, you could always just push up a one prize, or it's a lot harder to get a turn one hands, and you can't turn one hands a Cloth as well, right? Because that 140.
Nope, Cloth has 120, buddy.
Oh, okay, wait, yeah, might just be go second. Because Magneton gives you so much more energy throughout the game. You can easily go like hands.
You
I
can
don't know.
turn one going
Yeah, with
first,
surprising.
push Brute Bonnet with the Ancient Booster Capsule.
There we go. Now we're thinking here, Chip. But then you get
But
Iron Bundled. So we need two Brute Bonnet.
both with the Ancient Booster
Both with an agent.
Capsule.
Yeah, we're going turn one, open Guru, get out double thing,
Yes,
trolley.
yes, you see the vision. Let's go.
Maybe we need to put like a honestly, it wouldn't even be bad. Now I'm like overcooking with this deck. Put a bravery charm in here so we can push Guru and put a bravery charm on it.
Ooh.
Play around.
Then how are we using our Force Seal Stone, buddy? We got Luminion, I
Luminion.
guess.
We got Luminion. We got Luminion.
Okay.
Hey man, if they're not getting the first two prizes, I think we can work it from there. We'll figure it out.
Sure. True. Yeah, super sick deck. Shout outs to those guys for coming up with something unique, without a doubt. Always love to that's one of my favorite things in Pokemon is seeing people, find something like that that's really cool and unique.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, big fan of that for sure.
Um One thing to talk about here with this tournament though is Raging Bolt, right? Second most popular deck in day 1, has a good conversion rate into day 2, remains the second
Yeah,
most popular deck,
did fine.
absent from the top cut.
Yeah, I don't
There
know.
were
Was it?
a couple in top 32, but yeah, it did not. It's another tournament here where Raging Bolt is not making top cut. What's holding it back from these good finishes?
I mean, I feel like I've been bringing this up a lot recently. I've been speaking to this a lot in the Pokemon TCG in general, just kind of like explain results and stuff like that. I just whatever the better players choose to play is gonna have like whatever the best players play is gonna probably have a way higher chance of succeeding. And Raging Bolt is just not a deck that the better players in the game choose to play. It's like if you had like a graph, like the better you get at the game, the less likely you are to play decks like Raging Bolt, right? Now it's not like no one good is playing Raging Bolt. It's just like a way lower percentage, right? If
Yeah.
you have 100 good players playing Reggie Drago, even if it's a lower percentage of the meta, which it wasn't for this tournament. But there's only 50 good players playing Raging Bolts. Even if there's more Raging Bolt players overall at the tournament, the skill heavily outweighs play rate, which is a good thing. It's a good thing that that's true for the game, right? We definitely want to see that being a thing. But and it almost feels like there is now. I don't know how good. We'll talk more about Raging Bolt going to Stuttgart, but I feel like there's a lot of potential or like win percentage to be gained from some really good players just kind of biting the bullet and picking up a deck like Raging Bolt sometimes. I don't know if we're in that situation now. I think Louisville's a great example of that with Caleb winning, Xander Perot getting 10th place. Although I will say I think Xander did play Raging Bolt at Gdansk and did not have as good of a result as his Louisville result. So I don't even know if he made day two. It might have been in this one. It might have been Lille. I think he went to one of the European ones. Or was it LAIC actually? It might have been LAIC. Um,
Yeah, Lille was the weekend after Louisville.
yeah, it might have been LAIC. I saw Xander tweet after one of the European regionals, or it was maybe after LAIC.
Yeah,
There
he
we
got
go.
92nd at LAIC.
Yeah, did run it back with the bolt. Obviously, not like a great result there, but I think there is like, and I think it makes sense. Like if you're better at the game, it feels better to play something like a Reggie Drago. But there is like still just like I said, like a lot of opportunity in some of these metas for some of these best players in the game. Some of these great players to like maybe be like, all right, maybe I'll bring a Raging Ball to this tournament. It just feels like the Drago, the potential for Drago success is a little bit too high for me to ignore the Bolt potential. But I mean, we'll see what like we'll talk more about Stuttgart moving forward. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's just like once again the reason why we don't see the Bolt up there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like, I mean, if you look at the top cut, I mean, Bolt feels pretty good into basically all of those decks. I guess the Golden Go matchup is maybe the worst one of those decks, but it should have a good Regidrago matchup. It feels like it would still have a very good Miraidon matchup, right?
It definitely got worse. Magneton being able to power up the Raichu to be able to get through some of these Bravery Charms, but neither of the Miraidon players were playing like Vacuum, so they couldn't turn their Raikus into like heavy hitters that go wide for a turn and then vacuum off uh, a Bravery Charm to KO a Pheasantipity or an Ogerpon or something like that. So they were both missing that, and I'm sure if Raging Ball becomes successful or enough, that would be like a consideration, maybe. But maybe just having access to the Raichu one hit is enough, to be honest. Because you still have like hands on Radiant Greninja for a two prize option as well. If Squawkabilly comes into play, you can go for like Raikou on Radiant Greninja. Then you can hands the Squawkabilly later for a 1-3 and then close it out with like a Raichu for your last two on a Raging Bolt. So the matchup is also honestly maybe just fine for Miraidon now. It did pick up
Sure.
so many new pieces and tools that it's maybe actually just okay against Raging Bolt, but it's probably no better than 50-50, I would say. So yeah, I would say based on this top cut, Golden Go is probably the only bad matchup for Raging Bolt here.
Well, we'll talk some more about like the evolution of the meta and stuff when we talk about Stuttgart. But before we do, we got to have guess that flavor text. And before we have that, we've got to take a moment to thank our fantastic sponsor, Dragon Shield, for supporting us here at the Uncommon Energy Podcast. Of course, Azul and I are big fans of Dragon Shield's products, namely their sleeves. We use them at all the tournaments we play in. And while I didn't play that long in the tournament this weekend, I've got to say, while I was still hanging out there, the Mint Classic sleeves, oh, they were prime. And that has got to be, I think, one of my go-to colors from here on out. The Mint Classics are the way to go.
I was rocking the matte Auroras. I'm a huge fan of the mattes personally, so I had the matte Auroras stocked up. Rock those for the weekend. Good as always. Nothing has changed. Dragon Shield's still the best sleeves in the game. So shout out to Dragon Shield for sponsoring us as always. You can use our code UEPOD, get yourself 5% off and support us directly here on the podcast. Link, of course, will be in the description.
Yep, that is code UEPOD, UEPOD. Get 5% off and support us here. Shout out to Dragon Shield once again. And now it is time for Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast, where each week Azul or I picks a card, reads the flavor text from it, and has the opposing host try to guess which Pokemon is featured on that card. There are three lifelines you are able to use. Those lifelines are what set the card is from, what stage the card is, and read an attack name. It is my turn this week to pick a card for Azul. I've got one picked out and chosen. I think that there's a decent shot you can get this one. Currently, I am leading the way 32-26. It has been a few weeks since either of us has gotten one right, 5 weeks to be exact, which I think is our longest streak of no one getting a correct guess since episode 90. We went for a stretch between episode 81 and 89 where neither of us got anything. That's the longest stretch, I think. But this is the longest stretch since episode 90. So nearly 40 episodes, over 40 episodes, I guess, since we had a streak this long. Let's see if Azul can cut that streak short or if it'll be up to me next week to end it. Azul, are you ready?
I'm ready, Chip. Hit me with it.
All right. When it bites with its massive and powerful jaws, it shakes its head and savagely tears its victim up.
Oh man, I think I've read this one before. Think I want to say it's the what's the basic of the graveyard Pokemon? Houndstone?
Grievard is the little one, I
Grievard.
think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Grievard. Grievard, Houndstone. Also one of the ones that comes to mind. Some of the uh fossil Pokemon, they all got some jaws, like the
Ooh.
dinosaur ones. Like there's Tyrantrum. What stage is the Pokemon?
We're going with what stage for the first lifeline?
Yeah, give me what stage the Pokemon is.
It is a stage 2.
Ooh, okay. Read me the flavor text one more time.
When it bites with its massive and powerful jaws, it shakes its head and savagely tears its victim up.
So it's not Houndstone, because that's a stage one, or whatever
Yeah,
whatever that one is.
Houndstone. You got it. Yep.
Houndstone. Oh, okay, I did get it right. For some reason, I'm thinking it's like Rhyperior or is it Tyrantrum? Is that the one I'm thinking of? The other dinosaur one,
Yeah, yeah. Tyrantrum is a dinosaur.
stage two.
A lot of times those cards are stage ones, but if there was a more recently printed Tyrantrum, it would be a stage two because like Archeops. So like Archeops, remember old Archeops used to be a stage one, but now Archeops
Oh,
is a stage
true.
two. They've changed like how fossils work over the years.
Yeah. All right. I guess with that in mind, let's go with what set is the card from. I can maybe utilize that
All
information.
right. This
Maybe.
card this card is from Neo Genesis.
That's like an old one. Neo Genesis, powerful jaws. All right, give it to me one more time.
When it bites with its massive and powerful jaws, it shakes its head and savagely tears its victim up.
Yeesh, that's pretty gruesome. So it's not Rhyperior or Tyrantrum. I know it's not those. Powerful Jaws, stage 2 Pokemon. I'm thinking of like dog or dinosaur. What other fossils? There was Kabutops, so it's not a Kabutops. I don't think it's any of the fossil Pokemon. I gotta get off the fossil train. There's no dino fossils back then. Um Stage 2 Charizard, but no, it's not gonna be Charizard. Oh man, I'm kind of lost on this one now. Now that we went all the way back, this older set. I'm trying to think of like colorless Pokemon as well. Neo Genesis, what is that? That's like the first
It is
10
the
sets.
first Neo set, the first Gen 2 set.
Oh, first gen two. I mean, that doesn't really help me at all. Knowing what, dude, this is just like now. This has just made it so much harder. Now that I asked, or give me an attack name. I guess let's use the last lifeline here.
Chomp.
So stage 2, Chomp, Neo Genesis.
Yep.
Is Haxorus a Gen 2 Pokemon? Would it be Haxorus?
Should I tell you the
Trying to think.
answer if it's a yes, if it is or isn't a
No, I mean, I guess you shouldn't. But I guess Haxorus is one of the older ones, I feel like. Um, no, it's definitely not Haxorus. It can't be Haxorus. Dude, I'm
Haxorus is
trying
from Gen 5.
okay, I'm just trying to come up with anything at this point. I literally can't come up with anything.
Oh
Uh,
man.
maybe it could be Stoutland? No, Stoutland's had gotta be, like, a later gen as well. It's a
This is
dog.
rough. I
Dude,
thought you
I literally can't think of anything. I'm literally just, like, lost. Older Pokemon. Gen 2. Oh, what are the starting Pokemon from Gen 2? I don't even know that. Dude, I can't think of a single Pokemon right now, like, nothing that's coming to mind. These things like, I had stuff, and then now that it's been whittled down with these lifelines, I have nothing. Um, the lifelines have made it impossible for me to guess a Pokemon now. I should have just
rough.
guessed Haxorus. Um, alright, give me the flavor text one final time. Attack name is Chomp. Alright, go ahead. Stage 2.
There's actually multiple cards that have this flavor text, so I could give you a different set that it's from.
No, just give me the same.
Okay. When it bites with its massive and powerful jaws, it shakes its head and savagely tears its victim up.
Yeah, I've definitely heard this flavor text before as well. I just literally can't come up with a single freaking Pokemon.
All right, Azul. You got anything? You're gonna guess anything at
Haxorus. Give
all?
me give me Haxorus.
I literally told you it's
I
not.
know it's Gen 5.
Yeah. Five, four,
Let's go with
3, 2,
Luxray. No, I don't think it's
1.
Luxray. Luxray
Luxray is also well, no,
in
Luxray's a
later
Gen
gen.
4 Pokemon.
Same difference.
This
All right.
one, let me give you one last hint. You didn't get it, unfortunately. But there's also another version of this card with a different flavor text that's also in Neo Genesis, and its attack. So it's the same Pokemon, but a different flavor text. So I didn't read this one.
Okay.
Its attack is Riptide.
I don't know. Kyogre? No, it's not stage 2.
It's Feraligatr.
Oh, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, that all checks out.
Yep, this is the Riptide Feraligatr, which was the iconic
Oh, and
BDIF.
it is a starter. I maybe if I thought about which starters were in, I just did honestly, if I literally got to Totodile, I would have guessed for alligator, 100%. Hmm.
Unfortunate, buddy.
I don't know what the Gen 2 starters are though. I don't
It's
I don't know what are the other ones.
it's Totodile, Cyndaquil, and Chikorita.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Meganium, Typhlosion, and Feraligatr.
I definitely have seen this flavor text before. I don't know if it was on this card or a different for alligator.
And then
Probably a different for alligator.
this Feraligatr got reprinted in Dragon's Majesty, and it has the flavor text of this one, but it has the Riptide attack. I
Yeah.
thought the Riptide would be a better hint for you because we've played these retro decks before. You've played this before.
I maybe. Oh, that one, yeah, sure, but I don't know the ability names or the attacks or anything.
Come on, buddy.
I have no idea.
Well, better luck next time,
Oh.
Azul. Let us know in the comments if you were able to get this one. I have a feeling a good amount of you definitely were.
Yeah, I feel like this one's probably pretty easy for most people, especially with the lifelines. I feel like that would have led to.
Mm. I thought that it being an older set would maybe help you, but I guess that's not true. Unless I literally pick like a base set. So like that's maybe the only way it would help you
Yeah,
if
I
it's
feel
an
like I
older
know.
set.
I just don't know what gens Pokemon come from. But like I know base set Pokemon, but yeah, that is true. After that, I'm just like I don't know. I know Gen 1 Pokemon, but after that, I don't know what generation any of the Pokemon come from.
All right. Well, let's move on to our final topic this week, which will, of course, be discussing the upcoming Stuttgart Regional Championships happening over in Germany. Azul, you're registered. You heading over?
No, I did. I was gonna go if I won this tournament, or maybe if I had top 8 at this tournament. I was gonna go. I was kind of feeling it leading up to the tournament, so I did end up registering, but
Do
I'm
you
not gonna end up
feel
going.
any different after having competed in Sacramento for a weekend about competing this year? Like, do you feel like less wanting to go to more tournaments, or do you feel more driven and more desire to go to more tournaments, or is it kind of no change?
No change.
Okay. You just don't care about anything.
I mean, I was pretty confident in how I felt about it before Sacramento, and
I guess that's
still
fair.
the same.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, with Stuttgart this weekend and looking at the results from Sacramento, I think the obvious first question is where will Miraidon fit into this new meta? There is no way that it is not in the top six. I think it's got to be in the top three almost definitely. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I guess like I'm like to get like a not one of our predictions, but do you think it will like like after LAIC last year, Miraidon was the most popular deck? I actually want to confirm that because I'm pretty sure it was. I can check tournaments real quick. Do you think it will be the most popular deck like literally 1 week later?
I mean, I don't think it'll just immediately be the most popular. Like I said, I think it's definitely going to be top three. Honestly, probably second. It would be a huge jump to see it go from nothing to first. But I guess there is precedence, so it's possible, right? It is possible.
Yeah, I think for sure. And my biggest question mark is like one of my biggest questions actually going into the Sacramento weekend was because I wasn't sure, I didn't do any like testing. Was like, can Lost Box beat or how good is Lost Box's Drago matchup? And me and my group did test that. leading the couple days leading up to Sacramento, and our determining fact, or we determined that it's pretty rough, right? That is one of the reasons like Lost Box was off the table for us going into Sac overall. We just felt like that matchup wasn't good enough. I think the real question from Rhydon is just how good is your Drago matchup? And I think if the answer is it is favored against Drago, I think we could see a pretty reasonable shift in the meta for sure. I think it'd be very interesting if Miraidon's does have a popular Drago matchup, because I feel like Miraidon does have, with the new additions of the cards that it gained, it has a pretty wide matchup spread. The
Yeah.
Magneton is like the biggest deal. Like Magneton plus Raichu and being in the deck now, you got a pretty wide matchup spread now. And if you do have a favorable Drago matchup, like not just 50-50, but an actual favorable one, we could see, I think if a lot of people come to that determination before Stuttgart, we could see things flip pretty fast. And I think we could see Miraidon be the most popular deck at Stuttgart. I think I agree with you. I think it's unlikely.
It definitely feels like Miraidon has a solid uh Reggie Drago matchup. I know talking to Grant, and Grant was actually the only person that Landon lost to the entire weekend. Grant said that he thought the Miraidon matchup was quote free. Now, that is, Grant speak there a little bit. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but I mean, I watched his game against Landon, and in game three, he had a board with just two Reggie Drago V Star, and that felt pretty powerful if he got to that board state. Because it's like pretty difficult to do. Like, sure, you can write you once, but you can't write you through two of them, right?
Yeah, that's where it gets pretty tough. The biggest question is like how many can you even get enough energy on your second Drago at that point, I guess. But you could also like force them through the first one and then you put down your ogre pawns or something like that.
Sure.
Um you got some plays to be made for sure. Yeah, I actually had a couple board states like that throughout the weekend myself where it was just like got that first E switch off the ogre pawn, they KO'd that ogre pawn, and now you just don't bench any other two prizes. You just play it really, really conservatively. Yeah, Red Drago, of course. I mean, it's one of the reasons that so many players, top players like that, has got so much depth to it in terms of like the strategies you can execute. But that's like the big question I think for Miraidon moving forward. It did win. It was the two decks in the finals. They both beat multiple Reggie Dragos to get there, I'm sure. And it definitely each had to beat one in top cut, I think, as well, at least one. So that's a big question mark for me moving forward. Is just like that's like the number one thing that I would be testing if I was prepping for Stuttgart is just like if I am like potentially going to play either of those decks, figure that matchup out for sure, and then be like, well, if Miraidon does just beat Drago, if it is favored like 60-40 plus, or even just 50-50, it's like, all right, maybe now you look for a deck that's favored into Miraidon and Drago, and maybe the answer is Raging Bolt then at that point.
Yeah, but then you get Charizard coming back up, rearing its head. You get Lost Box, right? Both decks that Raging Bolt doesn't feel like it has a great time against. I mean, I guess like going into any tournament, I think people always want to know and identify what is the best deck. Like, what is the number one deck that people are going to play that I want to have a good matchup against? And it definitely seems like uh, in the past few tournaments, it's been Reggie Drago. Reggie Drago is the BDIF coming out of the last format. But now, with one tournament under our belt of Surging Sparks, can we still say that Drago is the BDIF?
Um, I mean, it's tough to tell for sure. I think there's still like stuff to develop. I think it was the best second format. Last format, probably. Although I think Lugia was still a decent contender for that, but Lugia fell off so hard at the end of the format. It's like a lot harder to like make that claim. But a couple tournaments isn't the whole format or whatever you want to say, right? And also like we just bring in. I think you can add the skill factor. If the skill was evenly distributed across all decks, Drago obviously wouldn't be as successful. Other decks would be more successful. Yada yada yada. But generally, good players play good decks, so gotta add that to the equation as well. Um, I mean, I would say it seems like the most powerful deck still probably Drago, but power doesn't mean best. So I think we should see how things go a little bit. I think one of the things that was kind of unfortunate in like the last couple formats was it felt like there was never. You brought up like Charizard, and the problem with Charizard the last couple formats, or last format, and even this format to start off with, is it just has a bad Drago matchup, which like why would you ever want to play a deck that has a bad Drago matchup? And it means that because we're not seeing the success from these more aggressive decks like Raging Bolt, there's like not an opportunity for Charizard to step up and become like a really good play because it's like, well, Bolt should theoretically check Drago, but it just doesn't. And then it's like Charizard never gets the opportunity to shine because it's like these Miraidon's doing well, Raging Bolt's popular, but there's still 5 Dragos in top cut, so I can't succeed as Charizard.
Yeah.
It just gets completely blocked out on that. But maybe this will be the catalyst. Maybe Miraidon is the catalyst for the shift. If Miraidon actually does have like a favorable Drago matchup, then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, okay, Drago's down in numbers. This gives an opportunity for Charizard because Charizard is still very good into Miraidon. They do have the Magneton Raichu play, but that just opens up for Briar to like Charizard for Charizard to win in like 2 turns. So the Briar is like a kind of makes it so like Magneton Raichu being now in the Miraidon deck doesn't feel as bad for Charizard because they can't go like hands Raichu, I don't know, Ursaluna or Raikou like a 2 prizer off the bench or something. You can go Charizard Briar and the game's over, even if they Magneton. So um yeah, Miraidon might be the catalyst for more decks to kind of get in the mix because it feels like we have been living in Drago's world for a little while now. Um so I'm very interested to see how this format changes moving forward. I feel like and this is something I've been trying to change about my perspective of formats. I feel like I've been pretty doom and gloom, like a couple formats in a row. I'm just like, well, it's going to be the exact same decks, or this deck's the BDIF. But I've been trying to be a little bit more open to the ideas of potential of decks, and I think there's a lot in the Surging Sparks format to still be discovered.
Was Lost Zone Pikachu overhyped? I know going into the tournament, it was a deck that we were really wanting to make sure we felt comfortable against with whatever deck we decided to play.
Yeah, and it was decently popular. I didn't expect it to be like too much more than like 7%. It was like 7% of the tournament. That's what I
I
was
thought
thinking.
I thought a lot more good like of the like top players were going to play Lost Zone, but it turns out they all just stuck with Reggie Drago.
Well, they probably all just came to the same conclusion, right? They probably a lot of decent amount of them tried, and they were like, "Well, we still just lose to Drago,"
Yeah.
and the matchup is still pretty tough. But I, Lost Peak is like really, really good into literally pretty much everything that's not Drago. So if Drago does start to take a back seat in this format, Lost Peak is there to like fill up some of this meta percentage for sure. So it's another one of those decks like Charizard that is kind of just preying on Drago's downfall so they can get in the mix again. So I don't want to say it's overhyped because the deck is so powerful against so many decks just has a bad Draco matchup. It's one matchup, but it's the most popular deck. It's the most powerful deck, and it's the deck that the most good players play. So it's hard to go up against that kind of deck with a bad matchup. But if things start to shift, Lost Peak I think is ready to become a top performing deck.
Just biding its time, waiting for Toronto regionals. The
Yeah,
Lost Zone Pikachu Canadian takeover. It's coming. Just wait.
I could see it. Yeah, maybe we might need a couple tournaments for sure.
Is Golden Go a real contender? Is that a real deck? Is that something we'll see pop up on the meta share? Does Energy Search Pro and Togekiss really just give it that much reach?
I mean, yeah, the Energy Search Pro obviously a super powerful card in the deck. The Togekiss looks gimmicky. Feels a little gimmicky, but if it works, it works. I guess that'd be the biggest question mark for me for Golden Go is like the best way to play it. I think it
It's
involves the Energy Surge Pro though.
it's almost like the whole like capturing aroma in Lugia thing, right? People just like don't like the idea of flipping coins, but if that's the best searching
Yep.
card to be playing, that's how you play it. So if Togekiss just is the card that elevates Golden Go to that next level, it's just the card to play.
Yeah, so be it, right? The best way to play it, the best way to play it. If you want to give yourself the best chance to succeed with the deck, maybe you have to flip some coins with the I forget what the ability is called with the Togekiss though. And yeah, I mean, Togekiss is definitely one of those decks that is I wouldn't overly say underexplored, but I think um under tried. Like I don't feel like a lot of players pick up Golden Go to be like, ooh, maybe I'll play Golden Go at this regional 2 or 3 weeks from now that I'm going to. Let me try that out. People are like, I'm gonna try Raging Ball, I'm gonna try or try Raging Ball, I'm gonna try Charizard, I'm gonna try Drago. No one's like, oh, I'm gonna give Golden Go a shot. I'm gonna play it for a couple days in a row, see how I feel about it. Do if I want to pursue this to be my play for the tournament? I feel like Golden Go doesn't fit that criteria, or is not one of those decks that a lot of people try out. And I think it'll just take a lot to push it to be a deck that people consider to play with. Like if this had won the tournament, I think it needs some kind of like success catalyst or like some like influential top level player to like get behind it, do really well with it, and then be like, this is a really good deck. More people should be playing with it, right? So I feel like that's what maybe Golden Go is missing. Either just needs to win the tournament for more people to look at it and pick it up and try it, or yeah, some top level player needs to get like a deep run. Maybe they don't have to exactly win, but then after the tournament, they have to be like, yeah, Golden Go is just broken. Y'all are sleeping on it. Um, so it's missing one of those two things, and I think we'll see a lot more people try it out. and then we'll see it be a more popular deck. Because I think it is probably good enough to like be like the Palkia Dusknoir of this format or something like that. Like a 7-8% meta deck goes up and down a little bit, something like that.
All right, well, let's get into some predictions here for Stuttgart this weekend. First up, which one will finish higher? We haven't really talked about these decks too much. We don't have like all the results easy to view on Limitless, but there were a few of these in day two of the tournament. We've got our Chaladon, Cerulege, and Hydreigon. So all the big three new decks from this set. None of them have really broken through yet. Obviously, we've talked about how Miraidon and Golden Go got buffs from this new set, but they're like
Not
own
new
brand new
archetypes.
archetypes are Chaladon, Cerulege, and Hydreigon. Which one of those three decks do you think will have the highest finish this weekend in Stuttgart?
I'm gonna go with just because I think it's the coolest of the three. I'm gonna go with Hydreigon because I'm hoping someone cooked over in Europe. Or I don't know, maybe there's a American player or someone out of region who uh play it for sack if they went to sack, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I think the deck is good enough. I think the meta is going to shift around for it to be a good enough play, and then we'll bring a Hydreigon. So I'm rooting for Hydreigon going into Stuttgart. Although I think in my experience, our Chaladon definitely feels like the best of the three. Hydreigon being the best of the three would be the coolest new archetype to be good.
I'm going to say Archaladon for this because it did have, solid enough finishes at Sacramento. There was a couple, I think, in the top 64. So I think that's a higher finish in Sacramento than either Cerulege or Hydreigon has to its name.
Yep.
And I think that, yeah, there's a lot of potential there. I like the Dialga build. That's what I tested a lot last week before Sacramento. I do think it's good. There's potential there. So, yeah, I'll say Archaladon EX.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that. I'm still not even convinced which build is the best way to build. Dialga is definitely more powerful, but just being a little bit more consistent about turn two punch with big Pokemon is not bad.
Yeah. Next prediction. We've done this one before, always a fun one. What deck will Tord play? So Tord, of course, one of the best players, if not the best player. Actually, you know what? He is the best player in the
Yeah.
game. Always interesting to see what he brings to a tournament. What do you think he's going with for this first tournament of the new format for him?
Well, I'm hoping it's not Reggie Drago, although I know Tort is a BDIF enjoyer. He definitely does this like playing the best deck in the format fairly often. Sometimes does shake it up though. So I'm hoping this is a shake up. And because I'm predicting Hydreigon to be the most successful of
Oh my
the new big three,
gosh.
I'm going to say Tord is going to play Hydreigon and get me a double prediction win here.
I
Um,
Is this some, like, insider information right here, Azul? You and Tord been throwing out ideas in the DMs about Hydreigon EX?
no, we have not. Although Tord, if you're trying to collab on a Hydreigon deck, let me know.
And, for me, I mean, he's just been so much of a Zard enjoyer over the last few months. Most recently, though, it's been all about Terapagos, and we've seen some kinda interesting Terapagos builds pop up, most recently, Charizard Terapagos. So he's been playing Charizard, he's been playing
Loft
Terapagos.
Terapagos.
Maybe it is Cloth Terapagos, hold up. I'm gonna say I'm just gonna say Terapagos. I don't know what partner it's gonna be.
Well, if you don't pick one of the partners and you don't get the predict, you have to.
Alright, here we go. We're gonna go Terapagos. Well, is it Terapagos?
I think Terapagos Charizard
Terapagos seems
is a.
pretty good. I'm gonna go with Terapagos Charizard
I think that is like a reasonable
because
prediction. I honestly just don't know if that deck's good though, to be honest. I have no idea how good that deck is.
that's, the 2 decks that he's played the most the last 12 months, Terapagos and
True.
Charizard. Just smash them together. Here we go. It's kind of like that Lost Zone deck he played last year that was like a combination of a bunch of different decks, it felt like.
Yeah, yeah.
All
That's
right.
reasonable prediction.
And our final prediction
High power decks are definitely something Tord has been playing a lot recently, so that wouldn't surprise me.
our final prediction here. How many Reggie Drago will there be in Top Cut? Not just top 8, Top Cut as a whole. How many Reggie Drago will be in that Top Cut? We had 5 in Top Cut and Top 8 in Sacramento this weekend. What's the number in Stuttgart?
And I did run a simulator real quick on Limitless before we started, and the number it spit out, I don't know the exact amount of players. I did it at 15% tie rate, which I think is probably going to be the norm moving forward. 15, 16% tie rate. I think it was 15
Yeah,
at, and it said there will be 9.4 players in Top Cut with an X and 2 or better record. I don't know where we're going to get point 0.4 players from, but I'm sure they'll figure it out.
bring up one of the
I'm
juniors.
I'm gonna go with one Reggie Drago and cut. I think the
Wow.
hate is gonna be coming heavy in Stuttgart, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and just say that I think Miraidon is slightly favored against Reggie Drago. Now, I don't. My testing is with that is limited, so don't take my word for it, or take it with a grain of salt, whatever. And I think the Reggie Drago player will lose an asymmetrical cut, and they will end point 0.4 in the tournament, ninth place in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's not gonna be 5 again.
Yeah.
I don't know about 1
Although,
though.
how broken is the deck if is 5? Like, is it just like, well, maybe it is just that good, too
Yeah,
good.
it's kinda that would be a little bit of a bummer, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Drago hate, to be honest. We need to someone needs to put these Drago players in their place, bro. Someone's gotta step up, just do it. Someone bring out the Raging Bolts, get them in there.
I am going to say 2, and that was the number I was thinking. And I think it's probably going to be 10 players in top cut, so we'll give them 2. I do think one still gets into top 8 for sure. And it's probably honestly Daniel or Miloslav, to be honest.
Going for the extended prediction this time, Chip.
Same 60 as well from LAIC. No
I mean, pretty
updates.
reasonable. I would be surprised if they didn't cut the Sinnoh, to be honest. I feel like Sinnoh's pretty weak.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they get into the Pokestop technology.
Yeah. Also, I think there's an argument for just, like, no stadium, to be honest, as well. But having something to bump your opponent's
Uh,
Pokestop is nice.
yeah, and that was one of the things, like, so we didn't play Pokestop, we played the Jamming Tower, um, and Pokestop is definitely, like, Pokestop
More
feels
powerful.
pretty good in the deck, to be honest, like, but
Yeah.
it feels like a good stadium to play. The problem is that you want to bump Pokestop against the Pokestop decks, but the problem is as well that you probably just lose to most of the Pokestop decks anyway,
Or just beat
so
them like Lost Zone, right? You kinda beat them. You don't care if they have Pokestop, they're cooked.
Oh,
Just helps you
true.
find your it just helps you find your canceling clone faster, like,
Yeah.
if they put it in play for you.
So maybe Pokestop is the move. But yeah, I'm gonna say 2 Reggie Drago in the top cut. I guess one more thing real quick we could talk about before we close out the episode. This is kind of going back to Sacramento. Um this was the first tournament. You talking about the tie rate made me think of this. This was the first tournament with the new day
Mm.
2 rules that they implemented, right? Where X21 makes day 2. So 5-2-1 was what you needed to get into day 2 of the tournament, which of course you yourself were able to achieve at the 5-2-1 record.
Shout out to
Um,
Hegster for beating me in the last round, gave me the 5-2-1.
what do we feel about that? What do we feel about the way it all kind of worked out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just fine. You just give more people the chance to play more Pokemon. I think that was kind of both of our, um, thoughts on it when we talked about it last week. I still don't understand why there's not, like, some and, like, said it last week, moving forward, it's very unlikely that X2 whiffs cut at any major tournament moving forward, but there just being a clause that says X2 makes cut no matter what is probably correct.
There was
Um,
honestly there was a scenario where 29 match points would have made top cut at this tournament. It almost happened.
wasn't super likely though.
Yeah,
Um,
it could have though.
yeah. Yeah, there's always a chance. There's always a chance. Well, the tie rate might have to get really, really high sometimes. There's sometimes a chance. X2 making cut should be pretty consistently happening moving forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, just giving more players the opportunity to play more Pokemon. I think it seems good. Think it seems good. I mean, if like I wouldn't have been super bummed if I could have played in day 2 from 5-2-1. I was even considering not showing up for day 2 and playing because I don't have an opportunity to win the tournament. Still could have got top 32, top 16, which would have been cool. Ended up top 128, got a booster box, and I was just having fun playing Drago. To be honest, it was just fun to play. Playing in like a tournament environment is so much different than just playing Pokemon in PTCG Live or even testing. Like, there's like another level of, I mean, competition to it that just like adds to the enjoyment of the experience. So I was just having fun playing Drago in a tournament. If I was playing like Raging Ball or something, I don't know if I would have showed up for day 2. I'm not gonna lie, but playing Drago, playing something like Drago, it was fun. So yeah, I definitely liked that.
I
And a
was
lot
in
of people
I was
did ID as
encouraging
well.
Azul to keep playing because we need a Surging Sparks booster box for the Evolution series,
Yeah, I clutched up.
and I needed him to win a booster box for the Evolution series. So shout outs to Azul for that one because I did not want to spend $200 on a booster box. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think yeah, I mean a lot of people did ID. I think it was like 80% it seemed like of players at 5 and 2 ID'd instead of playing it out, which is fine as well. Um so a lot of people just want to guarantee that day too and play some more Pokemon. You're still playing for a potential top six. If you go undefeated, you weren't guaranteed top 16, but you could have got caught up top 16. You were guaranteed top 32, so you're still playing for money, booster boxes, whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a positive change. I heard someone said it at the tournament, or I saw it on Twitter. Like it's like more people get to play more Pokemon if they want to play more Pokemon. Like it's like overall, it's a net positive. The only like theoretical negative, or not theoretical, the only negative is like the bubbles for top 16 and top 32 for cash prizing got bigger. But like I feel like the positive way outweighs the negative. So in that case, the change is just good, right?
Yeah. All right, Azul. I think that is it for us this week. Unless you got anything else you want to say to the people.
No, I think that's it. Gonna be. Oh, I will be restreaming Stuttgart over the weekend. That is happening. Of course, we just talked about that. So I'm gonna be restreaming that over on my Twitch channel and YouTube channel, Azul GG, over on both those platforms. Um, no, I think that's it. So go ahead and send us out.
Thanks a bunch to everyone for listening as always. And if you do enjoy the podcast, be sure to leave us a like, a review, a rating, or subscribe. It helps us out a ton, lets us know you're enjoying the content, and lets more people discover the podcast so they too can enjoy it as well. And if you want to stay up to date with myself and Azul, the best place to do it is over on X. You can follow myself at Chip Ritchie. Azul is at Azul_GG. And you can follow the podcast at Uncommon_Energy.
Yeah, appreciate the support as always. Catch y'all next week, Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, and talk to some of y'all in a bit on the bonus episode.